What happened to the Orcs after the ring was destroyed and the War of the Ring had ended? The end of the War of the Rings brought a new dawn to the land, but what became of the fearsome Orcs? Some continued their dark ways, scattering into the shadows to perpetuate their evil deeds. Others, however, found themselves lost and confused, torn between their loyalty to Sauron and a newfound desire for freedom. As Middle-earth heals from the aftermath of war, the fate of the Orcs remains uncertain. Join us on this journey as we uncover the mysteries and untold stories of these complex creatures in the wake of Sauron's downfall. Let the adventure begin. It all began with Eru Ilúvatar, a big boss of Tolkien's universe who birthed the elves in Middle-earth. These beings, the firstborn of Ilúvatar, woke up near a magical lake called Cuiviinen, gazing up at the twinkling stars above. But hiding in the shadows was Melkor, a power-hungry baddie craving his own children with divine spark. Unfortunately for Melkor, the flame of creation belonged to Eru alone. So instead of making his own elves, Melkor decided to ruin what Eru had made. Any elf who strayed too far from Cuiviinen risked falling into Melkor's trap and being whisked away to his evil lair, Utumno. In the clutches of Melkor, the once noble elves were twisted and transformed into the first Orcs, a dark and twisted version of their former selves. Despite some believing that Orcs might share the same destiny and long lives as elves, Tolkien's narrative reminds us that evil can only corrupt and never create anything truly powerful. Orcs, like all of Melkor's creations, are a pale imitation of the original elves. But Orcs are not immortal like their elf counterparts. They are subject to disease and can be slain. Their lifespan is far shorter than that of even men. As we delve deeper into the lore of Middle-earth, we see that Orcs are a diminished and flawed version of the beings they once were. As we prepare for the War of the Rings, we must understand the forces at play. Within the dark walls of Dol Guldur, Orcs gather in a formidable host, ready to do the bidding of their dark masters. But as the winds of war begin to blow, it is not just the Orcs we must be wary of, but the many factions and powers that will clash in the epic struggle ahead. Venturing into the forsaken halls of Dol Guldur, let us heed Haldir's ominous warning. Beware, for the shadow of the enemy may linger still within these walls, waiting to strike with a power sevenfold. The Orcs of Dol Guldur were a relentless threat to the realms of Lothlorien and Mirkwood, launching multiple assaults that were thwarted by the valiant elves. Amidst the clash of swords and the cries of battle, the Orcs fell to the unwavering defense of Thranduil and his forces. In the aftermath, Celeborn emerged as a beacon of hope, leading a determined assault to cleanse the forest of the taint of Dol Guldur. Celeborn's host sailed across the Anduin in a fleet of boats, reclaiming Dol Guldur and tearing down its walls, revealing the dark pits that once harbored the enemy's minions. And so, the forest was purged of its malevolent presence. As we tread carefully through the remnants of this once foul fortress, let us remain vigilant, for the evil that lurked within its depths may not have been wholly eradicated. The powerful white wizard, Sauron, led a fearsome army of Orcs and Uruk-hai, but suffered crushing defeats at Helm's Deep and Isengard. The Ents and Rohirrim, aided by the ancient trees of the forest, demolished Saruman's forces with unparalleled might. At the Battle of Dal, the valiant armies of Erebor and Dale united to clash with the Easterlings and Orcs. Despite the heavy toll of the loss of King Brand and King Dain II Ironfoot, the forces of darkness were ultimately overcome. Good triumphed over evil as the tides turned in favor of the brave defenders of Middle-earth. In the deep, dark tunnels of Moria, a group of Orcs found themselves at crossroads. With the mighty Balrog defeated and the dwarves returning to reclaim their kingdom, the future of the Orcs was uncertain. As they watched the dwarves bring light back to the once darkened halls, a glimmer of hope stirred within some of the Orcs. Among them, a young Orc named Grishnak felt a strange longing for something more than the endless fighting and servitude to dark forces. He had heard tales of a time when Orcs were free to roam the lands without fear of the lash of a Dark Lord, and a spark of curiosity ignited within him. Could there be a different path for his kind, one that did not involve endless violence and destruction? As the dwarves settled back into their kingdom and the sound of hammers and harps filled the air, Grishnak began to question his purpose. Was it truly his destiny to serve a master who only sought power and control? Or could there be a chance for redemption? A chance to break free from the chains of darkness that had bound his people for so long? Meanwhile, in the heart of Mordor, chaos reigned as Sauron's forces crumbled in the wake of his defeat. The once mighty orcs now find themselves without a leader, lost and directionless. Some, consumed by despair, chose to end their own lives rather than face a world without the one who enslaved them. But others, like Grishnak, felt a glimmer of hope in the darkness. As Aragorn led his forces to the Black Gate and the ring was destroyed, the surviving orcs scattered, seeking shelter in the shadows. They knew that their once mighty empire had fallen, but the fire of defiance still burned within them. Could they find a way to survive in a world that had turned against them? As Grishnak and his fellow orcs pondered their fate, a new idea began to take shape in their minds. What if they could forge a new path for themselves, one that did not involve serving dark masters or spreading chaos and fear? Could they find a way to coexist with the other creatures of Middle-earth and build a new future for their kind? It was a daunting task, to be sure. The orcs had long been seen as enemies, monsters to be feared and destroyed on sight. But Grishnak believed that there was a spark of goodness in every soul, even in the darkest corners of the world. And with that belief guiding him, he set out to prove that even the most unlikely of creatures could find redemption. In the dark and dreary land of Mordor, two orcs named Gorbag and Shagrat engage in a rare moment of conversation. Amidst the chaos of war and servitude to the Dark Lord, Sauron, they dare to dream of a life beyond their current existence. Gorbag expresses a yearning to find a place where orcs are not constantly looming over them, where they can live freely and at ease. Shagrat agrees, reminiscing about the old times when they were not under the thumb of big bosses and could enjoy the spoils of their own adventures. This dialogue reveals a side of orcs that is often overlooked in the epic tale of The Lord of the Rings. It shows that these creatures, though bred for battle and destruction, also possess a desire for peace and independence. Could it be possible that beneath their rough exteriors lies a longing for goodness and a better life? The conversation between Gorbag and Shagrat raises intriguing questions about the nature of orcs. Are they truly evil through and through, or is there a glimmer of hope for redemption within them? Could it be that their loyalty to Sauron is not born out of genuine malice, but rather a need for survival in a harsh and unforgiving world? In one of his letters, Tolkien talks about how orcs are created by the evil Morgoth, and how they are naturally bad because of this. But he also hints that maybe, just maybe, orcs could find redemption if they are accepted into the world as part of God's creation. However, in practical terms, it seems more likely that orcs would continue to be full of hatred and resentment, unable to change their ways. There's a glimmer of hope for orcs potentially coexisting with other races during times of peace, but Tolkien doesn't provide any concrete evidence for this in his stories. Looking at Tolkien's plans for a sequel to The Lord of the Rings, called The New Shadow, there is a curious absence of orcs. Instead, men take on the role of villains. This suggests that Tolkien may not have seen a long future for orcs in Middle-earth. From all this, it seems that while in theory orcs could change their ways and find redemption, in practice, it's unlikely to happen. Tolkien's vision for the future of Middle-earth doesn't seem to include a place for orcs. But what if orcs were given a chance to change? What if they were offered forgiveness and shown a different way of life? Could they overcome their evil nature and find a new path? Imagine a world where orcs, once seen as irredeemably bad, are given the opportunity to prove themselves. Maybe some orcs would rise above their past and choose a different destiny. Perhaps they could learn to live alongside other races in peace, forming bonds of friendship instead of hatred. It's a compelling idea to consider, the potential for orcs to rewrite their own story and break free from the chains of their dark past. Maybe, just maybe, there's a glimmer of hope for redemption, even for beings as twisted and cruel as orcs. But at the end of the day, Tolkien's writings suggest that orcs are destined to remain as they are, creatures of evil and hatred. Their fate seems sealed. Their future is already written in the annals of Middle-earth. As the story of the Orcs winds down, it becomes clear that their fate is closely tied to the fall of Sauron. Without their leader, the surviving Orcs are likely scattered into small tribes hidden in caves in the mountains. Their deep-seated hatred for men would not easily fade, making them a constant threat. However, with the age of men now upon Middle-earth, these tribes would not survive for long. The expanding realms of men would surely hunt them down until there was no orc left standing, erasing their presence from history. It raises the question of whether this is a necessary act to rid the world of the evil influence of Morgoth, or a brutal genocide of a race deemed irredeemable. It brings to mind the teachings of Gandalf to Frodo about showing pity and mercy even to those who seem beyond redemption, like Gollum. It prompts us to consider how we judge others who we may see as deserving of death. As the journey through Middle-earth draws to a close, it is a moment to rally support and call for aid. The beacons are lit, symbolizing the need for assistance and unity in facing the challenges ahead. Just as the people of Gondor responded to the call, we are reminded of the importance of standing together in times of need. In this tale of swords and sorcery, we see how the choices of individuals can shape the destiny of entire races. The Orcs, once feared and hated, are now on the brink of extinction. It's a stark reminder of the consequences of hate and vengeance, and the importance of seeking peace and understanding in a world torn apart by conflict. As the Orcs face their final stand, it's a call to reflect on our own actions and beliefs. Do we show mercy to those who have wronged us, or do we seek vengeance and destruction? In a world where darkness threatens to consume all, it's up to each of us to choose a path of compassion and forgiveness, even when faced with the darkest of foes. So as we bid farewell to Middle-earth and its inhabitants, let us remember the lessons learned on this epic journey. Let us be beacons of hope in a world overshadowed by darkness, and let us stand united against the forces of evil that seek to destroy everything we hold dear. The fate of the Orcs may be sealed, but our own destiny is ours to shape. So let us rise to the challenge, and together, we shall prevail. Thank you for watching today's video. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this.